Hello and welcome to this new edition of Echo Africa, the environment show brought to you by NTV in Uganda, Germany's Deutsche Welle and Channels TV right here in Nigeria. I'm Chris Lems, and with me today as always is my co-presenter Sandra. Hi dear Sandra.
Hey Chris, it is good to be here once again. So today we'll hear about some admirable examples of activism in action. So let's get started with a quick look at what we have coming up. Conservationists in Uganda fight to prevent the destruction of the rainforest. A rare species of zebra gets some much needed support in Kenya's bushlands. And a young man in Angola harnesses power from organic waste. Illegal deforestation is destroying entire ecosystems. Statistics show that more than 1.5 billion people depend directly on the world's forest, be it for food, for medical products, or for their livelihoods. Africa alone is home to over 15% of the planet's forest cover, but it is dwindling despite numerous protective measures. Now, an organization right here in Uganda called the Friends of Zoka is among those battling to save the rainforest. But it's not easy, and those involved pay a high price.
William Amanzuru always feels uneasy when he comes here to check for intruders. His efforts to protect the forest have won him enemies. His entire family has been threatened.
This is my brother's house. He has lived here for over 4 years. But then since when the threats escalated, he decided, because of his own safety, to leave home.
The trade in wood and charcoal from Zoka forest has increased. The timber here is highly sought after. William Amanzuru has spent years fighting illegal logging in the area. If he hears of trees being felled illegally, he moves straight into action.
The loggers came here and harvested these tree species. It's what you see here. The guys who do this are quite well-connected fellas. These are fellas who wield power, they have money. They also, they direct security of this country and what is to be done.
Amanzuru documents the illegal logging and reports it to the authorities. If they don't respond, he publishes the cases on his online platform, Friends of Zoka. He has many supporters. Together, they try to keep the issue in the public eye.
Because we cannot have access to these other courts of law or the systems, because most times they're in bed with the loggers, so we choose to go to the court of public opinion. If I take your picture and put here, and I say you are a logger with some of the evidence I connect, it creates an avenue where the public can discern you.
Amanzuru self-funds most of his work, but once in a while he receives donations from supporters, most of whom live locally. Zoka is a tropical forest that covers 13 square miles. Its rich biodiversity includes freshwater rivers that feed directly into the Nile, Africa's longest river. It's a sanctuary for abundant wildlife. But this ecologically important site has lost almost half its forest cover in the last 15 years due to illegal logging, charcoal burning, and the need for more farmland. Amanzuru is seeking to sensitize local communities in the hope they'll join his cause. Influencing public opinion is his best hope of effecting change. He's especially keen to reach the younger generation.
The world we are struggling to conserve belongs to them. So we are trying to initiate that idea that, let's live in harmony with nature.
This morning, that harmony feels a long way off. Amanzuru is wanted by the police in his hometown, Adjumani, to answer charges related to his work.
I have a police bond that I've been serving since January, and today is my reporting day to police. This could be my last day, maybe, of my freedom outside. I don't know if they are finished with their investigations.
Amanzuru is accused of mobilizing villagers to impound charcoal from suspected illegal dealers. The purported owner of the charcoal says it was worth over $6,000 and that Amanzuru simply stole it. The conservationist has already done several stints in prison for his work. But on reaching the police, Amanzuru learns that the plaintiff has dropped the charges. After 5 months of investigations, the police used the information given by Amanzuru to arrest the real perpetrators.
And we were able to arrest the first suspect, red-handed. He was brought to book. He's in Openjinji prison now. He has started serving.
For a long time, illegal loggers rarely had to face justice as they are well connected. But clearly, change is afoot.
I really feel excited, I feel free, I feel that my freedom is back, and I feel empowered to continue doing my work.
Work that remains dangerous for his family, his supporters, and above all, for him.
A powerful example of what one local initiative can accomplish, and it is never too early to start fighting for what you believe in. Greta Thunberg was just 15 when she started calling for stronger action on climate change outside the Swedish parliament. And as we all know, her protests evolved into the global movement Fridays for Future. Climate protection is just a matter of urgency to the young people all over the world. In fact, one group in Portugal has now even taken their concerns to court.
The sight leaves Claudia Durate Agostinho speechless. She can still remember when everything here was green. But ever since the wildfires, the pines are all dead.
It makes me very sad to see such an amazing place that was destroyed by the fires, and this is very symbolic because it means that it will keep happening. If nothing is done, this will keep happening in other places from our planet, and we should fight to change that.
Wildfires rage through Portugal often. In 2017, the fires claimed the lives of some 120 people and were deemed the worst in living memory. As each summer becomes hotter and drier than the last, the risk of devastation rises. Claudia blames the climate crisis. That's why the nursing student from Leiria, north of Lisbon, is stepping up the pressure. But since her voice wasn't being heard enough on the streets, she took her case to the European Court of Human Rights and sued half of Europe.
I'm taking this case against 33 countries because one day I want to be in a world that's healthy and with no danger.
Claudia's fellow plaintiffs are her siblings and her 3 friends. Her brother Martin is 18 and suffers from asthma. They say more and more people are getting sick from the increasing heat and fires.
With climate change, breathing problems will just get worse, and people like me won't get better. It will get worse and worse.
Their parents are supportive of the lawsuit. Teresa Mota is 47 years old and grew up in Germany. She says she has lived a carefree life, but can understand her children's concerns for the future. That's why she is glad that the judges in Strasbourg have classified the case as urgent.
I have a little girl. She's only 9. What will her life be like? I feel guilty. I didn't really do anything. I didn't contribute to the crisis. But I also didn't think about it, little less fight it, like my kids. I feel bad about that.
Lawsuits like this are what the Irish human rights organisation Global Legal Action Network specialises in. The strategy of their lawyer, Jerry Liston, and his team was risky. The European Court of Human Rights could have referred to national judicial channels, but the judges have admitted these young people's case.
We're ready.
By failing to adopt the necessary emissions reductions and policies that are needed to avoid these catastrophic consequences, governments are effectively discriminating on the basis of age. They are placing young generations at greater risk of future harm.
It remains to be seen when a verdict will be reached. For now, the 33 states charged are still fighting against the lawsuit.
Climate change and habitat loss are pushing more and more species to the brink of extinction. A number of global initiatives are seeking to address the issue, but often it is the smaller local projects focusing on a particular species that see the most success.
That's right, Sandra, because they include the people who live in the area, like the women of Samburu community in Kenya. They're on a mission to save a rare species of zebra from being lost for good.
Shortly after dawn, a first glimpse of Grevy's zebras. The presence of Jane Litole and her troop doesn't seem to bother the animals who are normally shy. Here in the Samburu region of central Kenya, the so-called women scouts are on patrol to determine how far the zebras range. The organization Grevy's Zebra Trust has trained more than 20 young women to monitor the world's most threatened zebra species. When I leave home, I fill out a data sheet to show where my patrol is starting. Then, every 30 minutes, I fill in the GPS data to show where I am and if I've seen zebras. At the end of the day, the organization uses that data to track the routes where I have patrolled. 40 years ago, there were 15,000 Grevy's zebras in Kenya alone. Now there are fewer than 3,000. They live in one of the driest parts of the country. The zebras can survive for up to 5 days without water, so they flourished in these conditions where there was no competition from other animals. But now, humans have begun to settle here, and their herd animals are eating the grass.
Things have changed from nomadism, where communities used to migrate from one place to another, giving the land a fallow period for it to recover, to where we've made communities more sedentary.
The pastoral communities rely mainly on goats and cows. Due to the presence of the nearby river, humans and animals are increasingly occupying the same areas, and food is growing scarcer. Longer dry periods caused by global warming are destroying more and more pasture land, increasing the pressure on the zebras and their ecosystem. For years, Peter Lalampa has been working with local cattle farmers. He believes they can coexist peacefully with the zebras.
They are able to safeguard some areas as dry season grazing reserves. Those areas they safeguard as dry season grazing areas are areas that are utilized by species such as Grevy zebra to have pasture. And so it's a way of rationing pasture. It's a way of making sure that there's coexistence between livestock and wildlife.
Eroded areas are being replanted to benefit all parties. The women in the communities play a key role in this. Their influence can ensure that the next generation will continue to value that coexistence. Herd animals loosen the soil on the arid pasture lands. Then, semicircular embankments are constructed around areas where grass could start growing again. They capture the little available rainwater and direct it onto the fields. The Samburu women tear out invasive acacia trees to use for firewood. Grass and other plants grow in their place. This way, 600 hectares of pasture land are reclaimed each year.
The areas that we started with, we've seen amazing response where perennial grasses that have disappeared over years have come back. That's just an indication that this method is working.
Traditions are important to the Samburu people. At the region's only river, the women give ritual thanks for the water and pastures in an Intorosi ceremony. Central to the Intorosi ceremony is the message of respect it carries. It also communicates to the rest of the community the importance of our conservation work and planned grazing. The scouts say their efforts have led to greater acceptance of the zebras, and that has benefits for all. We control the movement of livestock, and they can eat together with the zebras. So the zebras don't wander off in search of pasture. This attracts tourists to the region. Tourism creates jobs and bursaries for our children. Future generations of local people, provided with education and training, could build up a nature reserve where the Grevy's zebra population could recover and thrive.
Ensuring universal access to energy by 2030 is one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now, while progress is being made internationally, sub-Saharan Africa still lags way behind. Now, many areas have either no electricity at all or only for a few hours a day. And 90% of the region's energy comes from fossil fuels. But one man in Angola has come up with a way of generating his own clean energy.
Miguel Pereira lives in Cachito, Angola. Electricity is hard to come by here, so he decided to build his own generator. It's powered by an unlikely source: organic waste. Building his generator was no easy feat for the young inventor. The main difficulty I have been facing is financial, because I need to buy metal and plastic supplies. Another difficulty is funding for technical training in electronics and digital projects. This would allow me to develop my projects better. Miguel's community has a rubbish problem. It accumulates too quickly, and there are not enough storage facilities. But the waste is essential for Miguel's machine to work. So the generator also helps clean the community. Miguel has to store the waste properly before he puts it in the generator, so that it won't harm the environment.
And how about you? If you're also doing your bit, tell us about it. Visit our website or send us a tweet. #DoingYourBit. We share your stories.
Oceans are among the Earth's most valuable natural resources. They cover more than 70% of the planet's surface, help feed the world, and of course provide jobs for millions of people. Oceans also have a big influence on weather and clean the air. But pollution is choking these important waters, and heavy metal contamination is reaching alarming levels, especially in coastal regions. Now, British scientists hope that a small shellfish can help make the ocean a little cleaner along our shorelines.
After decades of near absence, scientists want to see whether European flat oysters could once again thrive in the Solent, a branch of the English Channel. 3 years ago, Luke Helmer from the University of Portsmouth released lab-raised oysters into the sea. But it was about a lot more than just restoring oysters to the area again.
There's also the water quality as well. Each adult oyster can filter in the region of around 150 to 200 litres of water a day.
But pollution and overfishing have decimated their numbers. The introduction of the Pacific oyster made things even worse. The two species were supposed to complement each other, but instead the Pacific oysters took over.
There is definitely the need for human intervention because the majority of the impact has been human-related.
So the researchers are looking to make amends. PhD student Monica Fabra monitors the artificial oyster beds in the laboratory.
We have these 8 broodstock tanks where we keep our adult oysters, and every day we feed them and we check the mortality and we measure them.
Young oysters on their own would stand little chance in the sea. They need protected space where they can grow and something to dock onto, like the shells of other oysters.
Making them reproduce in the hatchery is a safer environment, and we can control and we can ensure that they survive until the very end of the production.
In May, the scientists raised the water temperature by a few degrees, just as happens in nature, a signal to the oysters to start reproducing. The males release their sperm into the water and the females release their eggs. If enough larvae have hatched, they'll be brought here to Langstone Harbour.
And it's the area that we're going to be deploying our larger scale reefs. So over the next few years, as we begin developing more successful settlement, they'll go into an area just up here which is protected from fishing as well.
The test results are promising. Since these cages have been on the sea floor, eels, seahorses and bass have been spotted again.
Oysters are known as what's an ecosystem engineer, so they enhance the environment that they're restored to or that they were present in. In terms of biodiversity, we know that roughly around 466 different species have been associated with the native oyster. Here in the Solent so far, we've identified about 125 of those on some of the work that we've been conducting.
The team hopes to release up to 1 million oysters in the coming year, provided that carefully farmed oysters produce enough larvae.
Back to this continent now. South Africa's energy comes almost exclusively from coal-fired power plants, which is a major factor behind the rising cases of pollution in urban areas. But the government has announced plans to significantly increase the use of renewable energy sources within a decade.
Yes, it sounds like an ambitious plan, but doable. According to Green Cape, a South African non-profit organization that works to support innovative green startups, it's precisely these young companies that are expected to ensure South Africa achieves its environmental goals.
In 2019, the Protea Heights Academy School in Cape Town went solar without paying for the installation. The system was financed by a crowdfunding platform. The idea: small investors buy panels and earn an income from selling the electricity to the school that is using them. So far, Abraham Cambridge's crowdfunding platform equipped nearly 45 schools and companies. Within 5 years, they plan to have more than 200 additional systems installed.
So if you all want to put money in solar panels for an environmental reason, put them in South Africa. You're offsetting 8 times the carbon emissions with a solar panel here in South Africa than it would do in Germany, for example. And you're getting twice as much electricity out of it. So it just makes more sense to put a solar panel where you're creating more social, environmental and economic impact.
And for the school, the solar energy is cheaper than power from the grid. With investments from as little as €4, Sun Exchange is also open to people with less income. In fact, many of the pupils at Protea Heights invested in the solar cells themselves. Wendy Horn is the school's former principal. She says that aside from clean, cheap energy, the project also brings another benefit.
So when we launched it, our kids were so excited, our learners, to actually get involved in an entrepreneurial thing and actually buy little cells themselves and see how their money would increase or decrease or whatever. I mean, it created a huge entrepreneurial excitement. And that is also what we want to teach our children for the future, is entrepreneurial skills.
Innovative models to fund and produce green energy are urgently needed in South Africa, where roaming blackouts are a common occurrence. The government aims to produce a quarter of all electricity from renewables by 2030. Some innovators are also looking to the ocean for help. Simon Weinberg's company developed an underwater pump powered by the ocean's waves. It turns salt water into drinking water while producing a constant source of energy that could power up to 10 European households all year round.
There's always energy out there. If we sit here, we're looking at a whole range of waves that have come from different areas. There's a lot of stuff that's produced locally by the local winds, but there's an enormous amount of energy that's come from storms that could be thousands of miles away.
The wave pump is tied to a buoy that lifts the arm with each wave. The lever movement pressurizes water to purify it and generate electricity at the same time. For years, the prototype unit was tested underwater and is now back in the workshop for some maintenance work. So far, the unit has proven that the concept works, the team says, despite the challenges.
We're very confident that these systems are going to be a big part of the solution in future. It's not ruling out solar or wind, but working in conjunction with them. The challenges with the ocean, though, is that it's an expensive system to develop when there's very little funding available. So this is why it's taken so long to get where it has today.
With sufficient funding, the company could start to build larger pumps that would feed into the power grid. That would be another step towards making South Africa's energy mix greener.
We hope you enjoyed the show and we've given you some ideas and inspiration. That's all for this time. I'm Chris Alems, signing off from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm already looking forward to next week.
I couldn't agree with you more, Chris. It is a goodbye from me here in Kampala, Uganda. Do not forget to check out our social media and our environment website. We would like to get a virtual visit from you. My name is Sandra Twinobudio and I look forward to your company again next week.